We need to withdraw some cash. We're buying truffles. This is like a race against the clock because we have 3 minutes to get where we're going.
Nowadays, to be traditional, you have to be, I would say, contemporary.
It's a huge pleasure to actually be back in Piedmont. It's been absolutely wonderful rediscovering this gorgeous landscape. Wonderful food. Oh, we're drowning in truffles. Well, the views in Piedmont, I must say, I'm more often in Tuscany than I'm in Piedmont, and I have to admit that I have a little bit forgotten how incredibly beautiful this place is. One of the things we tend to get stuck with, it's always the top wines. And the thing is that you can absolutely have a wonderful wine cellar with wines costing less than 50 euros a bottle. And the thing is that there's some absolutely wonderful Lange Nebbiolos to be had. Most of them are really enjoyable young, and some of them will also age very lovely for a few years. And that's the thing. You don't always have to buy just the Barolos or the Barbarescos to have some really interesting wines in your cellar. Very good Lange. Lovely. For those of you who are going for the top wines, of course, then Barolo and Barbaresco is one of the sacred places on the planet. Absolutely gorgeous place to be.
Very sweet.
Visiting the restaurant Madonna della Neve, which is in the countryside, so it's not something you will stumble on across the road from your hotel. But this place you should really seek out. Wonderful wine cellar with very competitive prices and a huge selection. Everything, as you would expect, is made by hand in the kitchen. Pasta, like there's no tomorrow. There's just passion. Food is absolutely wonderful. I loved absolutely everything we had here. This is the place to go if you are in the area. When you travel, you should always look into the wine lists because you can get some excellent bargains. Here in Piedmont, the wines in the restaurants can almost always be much better than you normally find them in the market. So there's some excellent value in this wine list. And it's a huge wine list. This is just Barbaresco. Here is Barolo, page after page. And lots of great names. And very good prices. That's a good tip. You have Castiglione, Falletto and La Morra and all these lovely small villages scattered around the landscape. And just going into a wine shop, really good wine shop, lovely selection of wines. It turns out there's 3 tables in the backyard, and we decided to taste one of the wines from the selection and serve the wine blind. And we had an absolutely wonderful time.
Oh, this must be older. It's not the easiest glasses to color in. Quite the balsamic, dried fruits. Dates and figs, still cherries, licorice, definitely brick color.
It still has a nice structure though.
It still has quite a bit of tannins. With that tannin structure, I would say Barolo. Barbaresco as well. It's a quite elegant wine. It's very elegant. The tannin structure would be firmer than anything I've had in Barbaresco, which I can recall. But what it is a very good wine. Lovely. I would say more of a classic producer than a modern one, and 25 to 30 years old.
This is 1999 riserva Mosconi.
Somebody guessed it right?
When you're driving through Barolo, you want to stop every 50 meters because the landscape changes, the dimension changes, the vista changes, everything is changing. And you realize that the place you thought were the most stunning place you've ever been 3 minutes ago is now completely changed, and you've gone up 150 meters on the road.
I was born drunk, maybe, because I remember, at the time I remember very tannic Barolo, more than now. For me is an emotion, big emotion, to live here, to try the Barolo in the years. You can see in that hill our Barolo Bricco Pernice, always in Ravera Cru. And you can see the top, the camel shape, Nebbiolo Lampia 100%.
Nebbiolo Lampia.
Lampia. We have 3 biotypes of Nebbiolo.
Okay.
Lampia, most cultivated in this area, Nebbiolo Miquette, and Nebbiolo Rosé.
And what's the distinction between them?
Lampia is a very good compromise with power and finesse. Miquette is more power, and Nebbiolo Rosé is more delicate, less color, more flower than another 2 biotypes. We have just one cru, is Ravera Cru, in Novello village. The style is like a Burgundy style, or different vineyard, different clones, and different style of Barolo. Also in this exposure we have Dolcetto there, and here before we had Barbera, now we replanted with our white grape Nascetta. It's autochthone grape, very old grape, was born in Novello and a little bit in Monforte. This is the unique white grape that you can find minerality, and it ages very, very well. Allora, I show you the new map of Alessandro Masnaghetti. Here you can find Tanaro River that divided Roero and Langhe area. In the Langhe you can find Barolo area and Barbaresco area, 3 different areas. This is the best time to come here for the view. You can understand different type of grapes. For example, Dolcetto is red and brown is there. Barbera is red and Nebbiolo is green and a little bit yellow. So you can understand different types of grape, different vineyards. The Barolo was more power. Not difficult to drink than now, but more power, you need to wait for more time. Now, the Barolo is also for the new generation, more drinkable.
I think it's a big problem for younger generations because when I got into wine 25 years ago, you could stretch it, you could buy almost anything. And now, was it 2 years ago when you had the sommelier competition, the best sommeliers in the world? And I remember listening to the finale, and especially one of them had a perfect description of an absolutely brilliant Pomerol, and it turned out they were shown Petrus, but none of them guessed Petrus, none of them guessed Pomerol, because some of these wines are so expensive that even the world's greatest sommeliers haven't tasted these wines. And it turned out after that none of the participants, top sommeliers on the planet, none of them have ever tasted Petrus. If I was the owner of Petrus, I would be scared, because that means that the people who really go out and talk about your wines, they have no idea what your wine is. They know about the name, but they don't know about the wine. They have never tried it, and I think that's a big problem with some of these wines now, that they're so expensive, they're so unobtainable, that there will be another generation coming that has absolutely no idea what it is.
Vineyard. Also you can find Dolcetto.
Visiting Cogno for the first time. I've enjoyed these wines for a long time, but it's actually my first time visiting the property, and I'm absolutely godsmacked when I'm arriving. The views from this place, it's one of the most beautiful places I've been in a long time, and trust me, I visited a lot of beautiful places. The owner is absolutely charming, wines are lovely, place is one of the most beautiful wineries I've visited in years.
The price, I mean, it depends by the night. It is what it is. I mean, you decide if you have truffle, you pay a little bit more, otherwise pay a little bit less, but depends on the night. So you go there and he decides like the prices at the end. So you pay per person. There's not like a fixed price for like the food or whatever.
Capisme, Langa, Roero, Angelo Nero, così assaggiate.
One of the things I've really been missing unconsciously with Piedmont is that the food is just so good.
Questo si mangia così, eh?
When you visit a wine region, it's not that easy all the time to just find these gems that we've been stumbling upon. And I'm saying we, it's not the royal we, it's Peter and me, the guy who's behind the camera. And we've just enjoyed the food here tremendously. It's been absolutely wonderful. And you have to come here to eat and drink. It's incredibly good.
The manifesto of Viberti is very important. No toasted barrel. No toasted barrel. Why? Because we don't like vanilla, coconut, or other aroma, but we like the grape variety, so the aroma of Nebbiolo. That is very important for us, for our Langhe Nebbiolo, but also for our Barolo. This cluster is very little. It's very little cluster. Now the new generation of vine have a very big cluster, but not concentrated like this. The very old plant have 102 years old.
102.
Yeah.
Wow.
102. Yeah. Without American roots.
Without?
Yeah.
So this is...
Yeah, a Prephyllosera.
Yeah,
The
wow.
very old plant.
Yeah.
The new plant have the Phylloxera resistance. If you have sandy soil, the roots go down directly. In this type of soil that is difficult, search the water in this direction. It is important to put the nutriment into the middle of the vineyards, not into the plants. 10 years. 10 years, I think 2 years this very, so you look here, the two roots here, two different way, and I think 80, 90 years old. Guyot is the classical method to make here the viticulture. We use this high branch, we put it in the wire, and we make the nest, like a nest of a bird, no? The nest is important for have a umbrella for the sun. Covered from the sun and the hail, the grape. The quality start here in the harvest. If you harvest in the big tank, you start to make the wine into the vineyards. Start the fermentation because hot, a lot of weight into grape to grape. So
It's like a shopping...
yeah, shopping bag.
case.
Yeah, only 20 kilograms weight. Important for the mouse. For don't have mouse into the yeah, smart.
At Buon Padre restaurant, you have this incredible atmosphere when you walk in. You feel that people have been enjoying food here for generations. Maria, mother of Claudio Viberti, I guess in most countries she would probably have been retired, but she's here every day making pasta to make sure it's the right quality. And that's just that family thing. And you know, I'm not going into any pasta discussions here, but I can tell you the pasta, everything we actually had at Buon Padre was absolutely lovely. And what a charming family to get to know. I've tasted Viberti for many years. I think there's a wonderful evolution going on with wines. I think the wines are getting better and better, more and more precise, purer and purer. It's the first time I'm visiting the property and I had such a great time here.
A very old bottle without a label because it's very old, I think 1 century. The color in this case is beautiful. Very high concentration. It's very deep.
How to get the freshness and not get the things you don't want to have. And that was one of the reasons I thought it was quite exciting to visit. It's the first time I'm here. I thought something is going on. I think the wines are getting more precise, more floral, more pure on the fruit. And from this tasting, the entire range is just incredibly delicate and Well, some of the wines are maybe not delicate because they have a lot of texture and a lot of structure because they're Barolo, but they're way more elegant than I've ever had from here before. And I think the first one I noticed with that was the Lange Nebbiolo, like last year or 2 years ago, where I thought, wow, there's a new freshness, there's a new brightness from Viberti. And I think this entire range is going in that direction.
Where did you arrive from?
Seattle. It was a pretty long way. So I can have a glass of it with you. If you want. That in the old days, Dolcetto used to have this very straight almond and red fruit, where nowadays time, because they farm Dolcettos like Barbera and Nebbiolo, so they making something that is not anymore the original authentic taste.
Yeah.
And this is the way to drink that is very popular now.
Yeah.
Nowadays, people start to like to drink this way. They drink. I noticed I was in the US a lot of Morgon, south of Burgundy,
Yes.
and this is that way of drinking. And that's the story of Barolo. It was a wine special to be sold and consumed in special occasion. And we are ready as a family brand. We always committed in both Barolos, Barberas, and Dolcetto with the same efforts and the same passion. Buonpadre became over the years a everyman restaurant. Everybody can come here, from families to visitors from all over the world, from local people, from the plumber for lunch that is having like a bite for lunch, to the lawyers, to anything. It's welcome, and everybody find a kind of a home here. Especially for a new generation like me, they're taking over. It's very difficult to conserve tradition, but also evolve them in the nowadays time. That's what we're doing. We keep making the same thing we have done back 50 years ago. But I always say nowadays, to be traditional, you have to be, I would say, contemporary. The philosophy in cellar is very easy. A conscious use of technology to the service of the traditional taste. Grassing is the new era. While before we were keeping very clean our rows on the way to avoid competition within our vines, now grassing has different, multiple meanings. From preserve the soil from erosion, to maintain moisture of the soil, to preserve a lower temperature of the soil, and more and more we're using also specific grass to fertilize our soil. It's the green fertilization. My passion is wine from all over the world. That's why the family in 2017 opened another restaurant called Locanda La Gemella, actually taking the name from another label produced by the family that is a Barbera. And in that restaurant is where we cultivate our passion for wine, because we have all that wine list for almost 1,200 labels.
And we're enjoying Barolo San Pietro Riserva 2019. What would be your preferred food with this wine?
Tend to have in the first stage always a dark blueberry, especially when we release the wine, and a touch of earthiness. Then if you leave sometimes in bottle age, then you start to have what is called, what we call here, the goudron, that can be the equivalent of tar feeling. Food, for sure, red meats. We just had dinner, and I think the cheek was just perfect. The tenderness and the reduction sauce, that is wine reduction, goes perfectly with the tar feeling, especially the tannin then to tie very well and claim the food itself. Cheese, but I would say also very unusual food. Dark chocolate. Even dark chocolate with the bitter feeling, like orange peel and dark chocolate. That's a very, very good combination with the San Pietro as well.
Where does the minty note in Bricco delle Viole come from?
That's his own marker. Is the fantastic thing, and is what makes distinctive and loving and hating the Bricco delle Viole, because it's always the bottle that bring the discussion around the table. And it's our proud. It's a special single vineyards. We only actually bottling that single vineyards in vintages that shows two main characteristics. That marker, so this botanical touch that can be more mintiness or more camphor or eucalyptus, and long life cellar potential characteristic. So we have done 16, 17, 18, 19. We are gonna skip 20, so no Bricco delle Viole next year, but obviously will be 21 release at the end of 2027. The new normality is a warmer June, July especially, and often a warmer end of summer. That makes also an anticipation in the harvest operation. But what you notice, especially in all the wines produced with Nebbiolo, so not just Barolos, but I will include Barbaresco, but Langhe Nebbiolo is a more general appellation. You find tannins that are far more rounder and accessible versus the past. And that's also something that I notice in the market, where people are more, willing to drink younger Langhe Nebbiolos versus was in the past. They did notice these changes. And we did change our way to farm and our way to make the wine, always with the goal to preserve the taste of the past. So if you come here and you say, hey, are you a traditional producer and you're making the same practice of the past, my answer will be no. I'm a traditional producer, but nowadays to be traditional, as I say before, you need to be a little bit contemporary and read through the vintages to deliver the past taste to our customer. That's maybe the lucky part of my life. I love my job. I love stay around the vineyards, the winery. I love the restaurant. I love to hear the comments of our clients in the restaurant and the complaint as well. That is always for us a great way to evolve and to do better and to have new ambition and new goals. We still are what we were.
And you go truffle hunting?
No, unfortunately not truffle hunting, but I'm a good trader in truffles, so I have to buy for the restaurants, and we have 3 good hunters that regularly bring the truffles here. Buongiorno. Allora, this is what I got. These I took away because it's not good. This is a good smell.
It's sweeter.
Check what you want. Allora, 300 per size. This is supposed to be 100 gram, I think. 100 and something. Yes, 100.05. This is 300 euro. Cost price.
So we were in Piedmont in the beginning of the white truffle season, September, early October, and that means that you shouldn't store it for as long, and that's also why the prices are a little bit cheaper. It will last much longer the further you come to Christmas.
Straight from the truffle forests